Warning, the information and opinions within are solely for views of the individuals involved and contains content not suitable for anyone.
Hold on to your socks. Here we go for the very first iteration of Storytime with Ben68. The story is The Inescapable Bone-Chilling Horrors of Upland by the Upland community and ChatGPT. Introduction. Welcome, brave souls, to a bone-chilling 8-chapter journey through the foggy, shadowy corners of Upland, where the promises of Web3 entrepreneurship meet the spine-tingling reality of a metaverse still haunted by its own missteps. Tonight, we dare to confront the horrors of Upland. What started as a bright vision for digital entrepreneurs has turned into a complex maze where transparency is murky and the path forward seems blocked by frustrations and, yes, technical glitches that are enough to make even the most seasoned Uplander shudder. But what horrors lurk in the shadows of Upland, you ask? Well, let's hear from the brave Uplanders themselves, who've peered into the dark abyss and come back with tales of woe and warning. Gather round as we dive into the crypt of concerns, each one more chilling than the last. Chapter 1, The User Experience, a Maze of Frustrations. Now, one of the most frightening aspects of Upland is how complicated it's become. From clunky interfaces to confusion over how new players are supposed to get their feet on solid ground, many Uplanders feel like they've been tossed into a haunted house with no map. As one community member put it, the game is ugly, it's complicated, it needs major improvement, end quote. But dear listeners, let me ask you this. What's been your scariest experience trying to navigate the eerie streets of Upland? Have you ever felt lost in its twists and turns? I've been playing this game for 5.5 years now, I think, and yes, I would hate to think if I was a new player starting right now, how complex it must be to try and get your head around everything. Just think of things like transportation. Wow, I even struggle with that now, myself sometimes when we go to places. Moving on, Chapter 2, Transparency and the Ghost in the Machine. Now, perhaps the most bone-chilling horror of all, a ghost that haunts every corner of Upland, an apparent lack of transparency. Mr. X1, as we'll call him, perhaps says it best, in quotes, Upland needs to be more transparent with what they're doing. The more they release, the more obvious it is that the casino is their bread and butter. It doesn't seem like they respect their customers, end quote. So I guess he's alluding to the fact there with all of this, gambling aspect with, what do we talk about, landmarks and whatnot. So yes, this is the kind of haunting that doesn't just go away with the flick of a switch. So Upland management, if you're tuning in, what are you hiding in your shadows? Or perhaps more importantly, what would happen if you stepped out into the light? Would you burn up in flames? Who knows? So much of what we try to navigate as a community is bits and pieces of information, often ridiculously confusing, sometimes contradictory, and of course there's a growing list of ghoulishly hidden algorithms that often dictate the fate of us as individual players and large sub-communities, the Naboo collection scoring system being a prime example of that. Chapter 3, The Customer Service Crypt, where pleas for help go unanswered. The support team, or as some of you have called them, the gatekeepers of the underworld. Mr. X2 tells us about the horror of reaching out for help only to be met with bans and silence. It seems that for some players, trying to get some support from Upland feels like they're summoning a spirit. You're never quite sure if they're going to respond or if they're going to banish you instead. Or in my own personal and recent example, they bizarrely take credit for an issue that you yourself fix after conjuring up an unnecessary workaround. That was an interesting one, that one. So Upland, why does reaching out for help sometimes feel like stepping into a cursed graveyard for some players? And to the players out there, what's been your most nightmarish experience dealing with Upland's customer service? Bit of a side note on that one. To be fair to Upland, the positive community support situations that I've been in vastly outweigh the negative experiences that I've had. So, and they do at least tend to deal with things rather quickly, even if it's not to players' satisfaction, oftentimes. Right, Chapter 4, Gameplay Improvements, a haunted world in need of repair. Next, we visit the cemetery of gameplay features that have decayed over time. Upland's treasure hunting was once a thriving adventure, but according to Mr. X3, in quotes, it's been nerfed to oblivion, properties are losing value, and racing, a skeleton of its former self, littered with problems, end quotes. And here's a question for all of you. How can Upland bring life back to these dead zones of gameplay? What's the treasure that would keep you hunting? Now, yes, we've kind of talked about this before. We've seen that treasure hunting on PC is going to be resurrected, but is it too little too late? Yes, there's whispers of layer 2s and layer 3s and more to come at some stage soon, and not forgetting that most of those have already been born to the system, now lie dead and buried as rotting remnants of lost promises and hints to what might have been. Looking at where we are right now, is this anywhere near enough mini gameplay to capture the minds of a mainstream player base after a whopping 6 years of development? Don't need to answer that one, it's a rhetorical question. Chapter 5, The Technological Black Hole, where innovation disappears. Then, of course, there's the technological black hole that's swallowing Upland's potential, from smart contracts to staking features, and one of the most requested features of all, property management tools. Yes, maybe even some better search functions. Players like Mr. X4 are calling out for advanced tools that would let them truly build in the metaverse. Yet, we're still waiting. Why is innovation stuck in this void? Upland, how long will we be trapped in this space before you let the community unlock the full potential of the platform? And players, what features do you think are desperately needed to stop this freefall? Search functions? I mean, please, Upland, search functions. Sorting functions, perhaps, if you can't do search functions. Something, please. Anyhow, Chapter 6, the Real World Value Vanishing Act. Terror doesn't stop there. Oh no, Upland promises a Web3 metaverse for digital entrepreneurs, but according to players like Mr. X5 and Mr. X6, the connection to real-world value and business opportunity seems to be like a ghost in the fog, vanishing before our very eyes. Where is the seamless integration between virtual properties and real-world businesses that was supposed to be the treasure at the end of this whole journey? Upland, if you want real businesses to stake their claim in your metaverse, show us the value that makes it worth their while. Listeners, what real-world partnership or features would keep you coming back to Upland? I guess that kind of alludes to as well, it's all well and good to have partners that we're buying stuff for, but we've mentioned this ad nauseum. If those partners aren't also promoting Upland on their end, well, what is the point other than just selling us more stuff that nothing's really happening with? Chapter 7. Now, this one that hits home for me personally, the white screen of doom, the crash that won't let you escape. Now, dear listeners, we arrive at one of the most dreadful horrors of all, the white screen of doom. Imagine this, you're deep in Upland, maybe on the verge of making a big move, and then nothing. Just a blank, soul-sucking white screen that crashes your entire experience. Mr. X7 called it out, and many of you have felt its icy grip. The crashes on iOS are beyond frustrating, and they're multiplying. And most horrifyingly of all, if some of the screenshots from Upland support that were sent through can be believed, the issue isn't even on Upland's radar, and they are quick to palm the problem off, believe it or not, to the individual user settings, their hardware limitations, or their connection issues. Absolutely ridiculous. Upland, when will you finally banish the demon from the metaverse, or even acknowledge its slow but exponentially growing presence, which threatens to make the iOS app even more frustrating and unplayable than it already is? It is the number one reason why I myself have stepped away as much as I have, and why I can't do much at all, because I can't. It's just a white screen of hell. For those of you listening, what has been your worst experience with the white screen of doom? Did it strike at the worst possible moment? I've lost count of the times it's done that for me. If you're on Android or you're a PC-only player, you might not have a clue what we're whining about, but believe me, if you're on iOS and you're doing anything around map assets or built-up areas, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Chapter 8, the final chapter, the two worlds collision, Layer 1 versus Layer 2. Finally, we arrive at the collision of worlds. Layer 1, the core of Upland, and Layer 2, the future that's struggling to emerge. Players like Mr. X8 and Mr. X9 warn of Layer 1 mechanics like treasure hunting being nerfed to the bone, while Layer 2 innovations are suffocating before they can even grow. It's as if two worlds are fighting for dominance, with neither of them winning. Upland, will you find a way to actively support Layer 2 to thrive, or will these constant nerfs leave both layers in ruin? And for you listening at home, how do you think Upland should balance these two layers? Don't forget that kind of works towards the changes that just happen willy-nilly in the API really affect what the Layer 2s can do. Adds extra work and whatnot. That's kind of what that alludes to as well. All right, in conclusion, open-ended community engagement. So fellow Uplanders, now's your time to step up. Let's keep the momentum going. Drop your scariest Upland stories in the comments, and if you haven't already done so, tell us which part of the Upland metaverse gives you the chills. What feature do you think needs the most urgent exorcism and Upland management? We're dying to know. How will you heed these cries for help? I've got a bit of an epilogue here and another call to action for Upland management and community. So, all right, let's end this haunted journey with some final words of warning. Upland, you've built a world that could be amazing, but right now it's filled with pitfalls, frustrations, and countless lost opportunities. The community is speaking loud and clear, and the fixes need to be made before the spectre of delusionment claims more souls. To the Upland team, we call on you to communicate openly, fix what's broken, and truly make this a space where digital entrepreneurs can thrive. To the Upland community, let's do what we can, keep pushing, let's keep building, and let's do all that we can to continue to make sure the Upland metaverse becomes the thriving world we know it can be. So what's your next move, Upland? We'll be watching from the shadows. The end.